Wanted to try and explain the new design using the templates. I think I make it much easier to explain why I've chosen the dimensions I've chosen. This is the old boat, 7/8 round pin, the one I used in the World Championships last year. I was really happy with that, really nice fast boat, really smooth turns, felt very balanced. The main change I wanted to make was to shorten the tail to increase the manoeuvrability and make it turn up the wave a bit faster. So I actually lost around about 4 inches at the back. In order to keep the boat balanced, it's quite important to readjust the area behind the seat, and it's not just the area, it's actually the area and the length behind the seat that makes the difference. So by making a small change back here, you have to make a very big change to the area on the back. I've increased the width around about here as much as I could, but I wanted to maintain the nice smooth shape back into the round pin. Personally, I'm not a big fan of boats that are sort of big and square at the back. I don't think they turn very well. You need the tail to be a nice smooth shape and to come back fairly narrow in order to make sure that this part of the rail, at the sort of apex, there's a sort of distinct curve in this to give it a nice feel to it. Because of that, I've also had to modify some of the other features on the boat, at the nose and also the rocker profile. So if I show you the nose on the templates, see this is the old boat, the old 7/8, this is the new 7/4. It's quite a bit narrower here at the front than the old one was. As I explained at the back, I've made the back wider in order to correct the fact that I've made it shorter, keep the boat nicely balanced. In order to maintain a nice smooth outline shape, I couldn't increase the width as much as was needed. So I've made it slightly narrower here in order to correct that, and the boat's now nicely balanced and should sit nice and level on the water. I've also modified the rocker profile in order to work with a new template. You have to modify everything at once. Unfortunately, you can't just change one thing. It's not as simple as chopping a bit off the back and moving the seat slightly. It's actually much more complicated. So at the back I've got a subtly different tail rocker profile, and the front's also changed a little bit. Where it's narrow at the front, I've had to increase the rocker very slightly, but also I've got very chamfered edges on the boat, which changed the amount of volume that's submerged underwater, so I had to take that into consideration. Moving on from the outline templates, I just want to use the boat now to try and explain the rocker profile, the reason I've chosen it and how that complements the outline profile. This boat's got around about 2.5 inches of tail rocker, which is fairly conservative. It's not that much for a surf kayak. It keeps the boat nice and fast. I've concentrated most of the rocker between around about here and here, so around about level with the fins off to the tail, goes off a nice radius there. The central section of the boat's actually very flat. There's no rocker at all for a period of about 90 centimetres. I've made the transition between that flat area and the tail as smooth as possible. I think the speed's the more important of the two variables. A good paddler can make up for a lot if the boat's got speed, but if the boat hasn't got speed, it doesn't matter how manoeuvrable it is, it will never really perform very well. Towards the front, the rocker profile again is nice and smooth. You notice on the rails, I've chamfered them off nicely to give a nice forgiving boat, and because of that, at the front of the boat then has a bit of a curve on it. So the volume that's submerged here is actually more than it would be if it was a flat kayak. That's an important consideration when you're designing the rocker profile. It's again very important on an international boat, which also tends to have this profile. So here the rocker actually, at the rail here where the tape goes, looks very smooth, but actually if you look on the actual hull profile, it's a little bit more distinct, and that's quite a subtle but important difference. On this design I decided to run with quad fins, which really is a progression from what I was doing in the old boat. And a lot of days I'd run with just 2 rail fins, which gave a really nice feel to the boat, a really nice crisp turn without resistance from the centre fin. On the big days, unfortunately though, you tend to lose a bit of drive and grip, so the obvious thing to me seemed to be to put a second fin behind and run quad fins. I'm running the rear fin as a symmetrical fin, running about 1 inch behind the front fin, with a slightly less towing. The front fin's just a normal rail fin. Having taken it out yesterday, I'm really pleased with the way it works. Huge amount of grip and yet almost no resistance to the turns, carving some really nice tight radius turns. I know I spoke to Chris Jones a few months ago about it, and he was also really positive about the benefits of quad fins. I think it's something I'll now be sticking with, and it really seems to work.